Welcome to the Filmsteins, the double-featured podcast. Join us as we unravel the interwoven experience and the continuous conversation of cinema. Take part in pairing movies with their cursed counterparts, movies that share DNA, or even pairing questionable duos by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/Filmsteins. We offer tiers at the $1, $5, and $20 level, where the $5 tier grant the ability to request films to further the discussion. So grab some popcorn, sit back, and get ready to join the 100-year conversation. This is the Filmsteins, where movies are more than just entertainment, they're an experience. All around you. And welcome back to another episode of the Filmsteins. Thank you guys for joining us today. I'm joined today by my Baba friend, Lucy.
Hello, everyone.
You can join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for brand new episodes of the Filmsteins. Some recent episodes include Richard Jewell, All of Us Strangers, our combo episode of Dune 1 and Dune Part 2, our Filmstein Awards, and the recent Blumhouse production, Imaginary. Remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas over on our Patreon at patreon.com/Filmsteins. Come subscribe, come write in, come request a movie. We appreciate all the support. Thank you guys very much.
Are you stressed and filled with anxiety like I am? Maybe in a bit of pain from that car accident you had a few years ago? Well, the sponsor of today's episode, Hempville CBD, has us covered. They have the highest quality products created by chemists and doctors. Hempville carries everything from CBD to THC dispensary grade without those despicable dispensary prices. Order your Delta 8, 9 edibles and vapes along with the THCA flower and get free shipping when you spend $50 or more at hempvillecbd.com. Check out the link in the description for more details.
But today we are discussing a little interesting film by Jennifer Kent, Australia's own The Babadook. I just wanted to say right off the top that I haven't seen this movie since it came out 10 years ago. That's kind of crazy. And I always thought it was just okay back then. And rewatching it, I still think it's pretty much just okay. I think it suffers from its low budget nature and maybe a little bit of its pioneering nature too, of what would kind of go on after this with this renaissance of, I don't know, statement horror where there's something to kind of read into. But it reminded me a lot of The Exorcist in this way. But all in all, I do think it's a mostly successful film, with the exception of one scene that makes a lot to come afterward kind of silly. And we'll talk about that when it comes up. But I'm very curious, what do you think of The Babadook?
I'm not exactly sure when I saw this film. I don't know if I saw it in 2014 when it came out, or if I saw it a few years later when it came out on Netflix. I'm not exactly sure. I think when it came out on Netflix, it was 2016. So it was, at least close enough. But I really liked this movie. And I think I really liked it back then, too. It's just been 10 years. I can't believe that. I thought it was like 5 years at least. But I think I enjoyed it then, too, even though not only was I not a horror fan, I didn't have any horror experience. But I think I liked it because this specific genre of horror is better in a lot of ways. These kind of psychological, mental health, human condition kind of horror is just more shocking and grim and just hits you harder in a way. It's just creepier in a way.
It sits with you a little more.
Yes. Not as much as a movie that has only that, with no horror. Those are worse. I like when it's mixed with horror because in a way it just feels like you can take it more than when it's not. But I felt this movie was a good movie. It was a nice watch. It was very creepy. The pacing was probably the most notable thing for me. And I really liked how the kid and the mom looked. I think they looked both creepy as hell. And it was a good movie.
There's something particularly existential about the collaboration of a horror film and thoughts on the human condition because of just how traumatic and disturbing human nature is, human society is. And so I think they're kind of a match made in heaven. So it's having one without the other is just something completely different, right?
Right. I don't know, but something about mixing it with horror makes it easier to swallow for me. almost satirical.
Yeah, sure. So you mentioned the pacing being notable. Tell me why.
I just thought the pacing was a slow burn. It really took its time to establish the characters, establish the household, the problems that we have in this household, establishing the mood, and really build the suspense here. And maybe it wasn't until he pushed his cousin out of the treehouse that I noticed it to start speeding up in terms of action and actually being a horror film and the creepiness and the monster. And after that she goes to the police, then she starts giving her son meds, and then she starts getting sort of possessed, for lack of better terms here, and everything just goes so quickly from there. But I don't know, what is that, like halfway through the movie? I didn't really record any time, but it was a very, very slow burn.
That's a really great thing to point out, because we had this extreme focus on these two characters, this mom and young boy of 6 or 7, and everything was spun kind of from their perspective, and even painting Sam as the central part of the movie and being a problem. And then, kind of like what you were saying, we get this slow burn of their relationship and starting to question whether or not Sam is the central problem to the movie. And I think you might be right. When Sam pushes his cousin out of the treehouse, that's almost a door opening up to reveal to us that, oh, this isn't a movie about Sam at all. This is a movie about how this mom is not dealing with her anxiety and traumas in life in any positive way whatsoever, and it's having a complete effect, over Sam. And he's this way because she's a piece of shit mother. For all we know, she's been this way his whole 6 years.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit like that Japanese film Monster, we have our thoughts on this particular character, and then, slowly things are revealed over the course of the movie, and it starts to put in question what the central problem is here. But there's this interesting thing here in the Babadook where if you watch it a second time, it almost feels like the mom was the way she was the whole time, and that was expressed through Samuel's fear of the Babadook, and how that becomes more active at certain points of the day or something, and how he's just afraid at home because of his mom, and that's expressed through the Babadook. And then we see that transition of his mom into the Babadook, throughout the film, of course, and it ultimately makes it kind of quite sad.
No, I like that you said that, because who is the Babadook? The Babadook is the dead dad, the trauma, the pain that the mom is experiencing. That becomes pretty much clear by the end of the movie, what the Babadook represents. He's a demon in a non-traditional way. He's her inner demon. And that makes sense that little Sammy would be scared out of his wits for his mom's inner demons. And obviously she hasn't been able to cope with the grief that she felt losing her husband. And then not only did she lose a husband, but she gained a reminder of that loss, and she didn't have a way to make that into a positive experience, or she couldn't, whatever. We all deal with things differently, of course. So it is very sad. It's very sad to see Sam go through that, and to have this perspective of him being creepy in the beginning of the film. He's creepy. He's just a spoiled kid, a kid with issues, all these things. And then it's not until the later half of the film where you start feeling sorry for him. He is the victim. You start cheering for him. One of the props that stood out to me in the movie was his weapons and everything he built for himself. And that alone represents him. The weapons, when we see them in the beginning of the film, they're creepy and they're scary. And why is this kid making weapons like this? And he's breaking windows. He's just being destructive. But then in the later half of the film, you realize why he's been making those weapons: to protect himself and to kind of protect his mom. because he's so fearful. And just that kind of perspective switch that you have watching this movie is pretty cool.
Yeah, the weapons are his defense. And it's cool that they are almost these, I don't know, Home Alone style, very crude weapons coming out of a child. It's very fun and very sensible. I like it when a metaphor can contextually make sense, too. We need to get this kid in some engineering school. That's all I'm saying. It's kind of funny that it's so simple in premise and statement, and it doesn't really let your mind beat around the bush like I think a lot of movies that follow this have. Like they're a little bit more interpretable. It shows a really cool confidence in the message. Because I have to imagine landing where Jennifer landed with Amelia taking care of the Babadook in the basement felt a little awkward, like in her own mind, like trying to wrestle that. Because how is that going to be perceived? And if people somehow do not grasp that it is her inner demon and that she's getting control over it, that it can't be eliminated completely, that it can only be controlled and nurtured. But bringing it worms to eat is a funny place to land, just literally seeing that on screen. But I can't think of another outcome that really makes that much sense, because it makes perfect sense. It's her pet, ultimately. Like all of our history and trauma and things that we think about and keep us up at night.
They're there to stay. Yeah.
They're there to stay. They're like your kid. Your kid keeps you up at night. So do your inner demons.
No, I really like that too. And I like it from every angle you just said, but also from a horror angle, in the way that if all these other people that had demons and possessions and such would have just kept it locked up, they wouldn't go traumatizing everywhere else, But it is her inner demon, and I thought it was a very cool message to do that, to say it's here to stay with you, and all you can do is feed it in a non-evil way, I guess. I like the word you use, nurture, from the worms of the dead dog.
Yeah, that poor dog.
I know.
He didn't make it out.
I know.
He's a victim of a horror movie.
Yeah, that was before we stopped killing dogs in horror movies.
We need to bring it back.
Let's not bring it back. I cannot take it. My little heart cannot take it.
What do you think about the Babadook? How he looked, how they displayed him on screen.
I thought he looked creepy as hell. I'm not too sure why we decided to make it a mister, why we decided to give it a top hat. All I can think about is that her biggest inner demon is her husband. That's all I can connect in my mind.
It's funny. I mean, how do you give a monster a gender?
Yeah.
Outside of its monsterness. A hat, I guess. A top hat.
And a suit, kind of?
Yeah, something that kind of resembles a suit. Yeah. That is funny. I like a lot of how we let our imagination kind of drive most of the visuals of the Babadook. We see him from a storybook. He's creepy looking. But 90% of the times we see him is out of that book. And, that's not real. Like, so-called real. But we know this thing is, wandering around the house in some capacity. And they build that suspense in such a 10 out of 10 way of these, like shadows in the corner.
Right. Or when she was at the police station in the back.
Things that resemble human figures. Yeah, it's really bizarre and very, very cool. And then the police station actually might be my favorite scene. It's so quick. She sees the Babadook get up, straight up, and she's just like, this is when the mom's kind of out of a rocker. I think that's the moment when you're like, oh, okay, she's actually
the messed up one.
Yeah.
Here.
But then the cop just looks at her, and the two other cops just stare at her like just strangely, like something you'd see out of a David Lynch movie. There's just this like unsettling awkwardness happening all of a sudden, which is used so effectively because we don't get a lot of other characters
right
in this movie. The most we get is out of her sister, probably. I know there's this like secondary love interest guy who's trying to get with the mom a little bit, or trying to just play around with her, gauge the waters. And do we need that just to make her hung up on her dead husband more effective. I don't know. That was kind of one of the weaker sections of the movie for me.
Thank God it wasn't too long, though.
No, for sure. But I must say, when we have this climactic, literal kind of paradigm shift of the perspective of the movie, when the Babadook opens the door, its hand goes over the door when it's open. Very creepy, very good. We see this black other side of the room. She covers her face with her blanket. She takes it off, is looking at the ceiling, and then we see this squiggly, squaggly Babadook climbing on the ceiling, and it looks really bad. I'm just like, this, I can't believe this is what's happening. And then it gets worse because we have this like frame by frame cycle of the Babadook like landing on her with the Babadook's face in frame, and it looks so bad. I'm just like, this has been so effective, and you're just knocking the wind out of this in one shot. I don't know if you feel the same way, but it reminds me of Reagan from The Exorcist, where as she progresses, the makeup gets worse. I'm just like, no, this is so good. Everything's so good until, this one moment, and then it kind of makes it silly in some way. The big difference is this is really not a horror movie. It's a human condition psychological thriller in disguise of a horror movie. The Exorcist is pretty much just a horror movie. But I think the easy fix, I don't know about the squiggly squaggling on top of the roof of the ceiling, but making the Babadook's like face indiscernible maybe when he came down on her would have helped. But it looked like a man in white face paint with black around his eyes. It was bad. I'm sorry. And I hate to say it took me out, because it didn't really take me out that much, but there's just so much good in this movie that this oversight is glaring, I guess.
See, this is what I love about this world, that people can watch the one same thing and have completely different experiences. Because I don't even know if I noticed that because my face was covered.
You were too scared.
I was scared. I didn't want to see him. I didn't want to see what he looked like, so my face was covered during that until I thought it was safe enough to uncover. And this wasn't Insidious or Hereditary. Insidious, the lipstick demon scared the shit out of me. Something like Hereditary, the mom climbing on the walls being creepy scared the shit out of me. So it's not creepy like this here, not really, but we have this suspense that's been building the whole fucking movie that I couldn't help it. I was scared. I was completely scared. So no, I did not experience what you experienced. It did not take me out whatsoever.
I will say it also took me out just slightly from a structural standpoint, in that we embraced the Babadook as this thing that we fear, that Sam fears, that it's under the bed, it's in the closet, it's in the corner. He goes to get his mom to look, it's never there. We embraced it not actually being there and us able to actually see it in any really discernible way of like, there it is, it's always a hand around the door, a figure in the corner, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's never these things that confirm what our imagination is putting together. And I get as far as the movie goes and it being the paradigm shift of the film letting us know that the mom and the Babadook are basically one and the same. And this is the cinematic treatment of the film letting us know that she's letting it in, as Sam would say. But I think still giving it a physical form in its entirety, especially the face, that's like the big thing, I think, forgets the childlike construction of what the Babadook was in the first place. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get that.
So there's just a little bit of there's so much good here, and it's just like, man, this is not good on a couple levels. Like, I feel like it's just a big oversight. The CG weird squiggling on the ceiling is one thing. I could totally look past that if it didn't happen 1 second before this. So It's just so funny that a 2-3 second little bit can stand out in the way it does to some people. But yeah, no, I feel you. It's how many people even noticed because they were
hiding their faces.
Yeah. That's good. But it's such a great example of a less is more in horror with the horror monsters, where we see him in a children's book, but we're not really seeing him. We're letting our imagination kind of fill in the gaps of what he is in real life.
I don't know, man. If their intent was to scare, they scared me.
They got you. That's awesome. I mean, that's good. I don't get scared of movies, so I'm a little bit of a bad critic when it comes to scares.
And I get too scared, so...
No, you're perfectly scared.
I'm perfectly scared? I can probably imagine how many people hid their faces to the Babadook. I don't know. I feel like I'm a scaredy cat, but I'd be surprised how many scaredy cats are actually out there too.
Did you hear those girls next to us when we went to see Imaginary?
Yes.
Imaginary wasn't scary. They were screaming. And she kept apologizing to her friend. I heard it.
I'm sorry.
So I think you're good. You're the perfect audience.
All right, I'm the perfect audience. I can't get away from how just creepy this entire movie is. Not scary, but just creepy and almost mysterious on what is going to happen, what is going on. I'll also add that for some reason, these Australian accents made the movie creepier for me. I don't know if that was just me or what.
Yeah, especially Sam.
Yes. Props to Sam. Dude was creepy. And I mean, the mom ended up getting really creepy too, but that was just more through her actions. But Sam looked creepy. The introduction of the movie does a really good job of setting that tone for the movie. We start off with the mom, and she's obviously maybe having a dream, and she's there in the car with her husband, and I guess we see them about to crash or whatever, and everything's just in slow motion, and we can see the little droplets of rain about to hit her face, and then we hear someone saying mom in the background, and the whole thing was just like, what the fuck is going on here? It was such a weird introduction and kept it going, kept it moving. I really like that. It was like a very strong start.
No, I totally agree. That introsection's a great hook. It does a great job immediately throwing you into these people are having a tough time sleeping. The sleep they're getting is not worthwhile. It introduces this surrealistic thing of really just like, what is this movie? I applaud it for not having a false intro. It's one of those little nuggets. When you watch it that second time, you were just like, man, how did I ever think Sam was the problem here? Yes, he became a problem because he's a wild child and becoming a menace to society, but it's because this mom is not okay. And she needs to figure out how to cope with her life and take care of her child.
No, I definitely agree with you. But it's hard to do that. It's really hard to do that. Especially when you have that scene, which is my favorite scene in the whole entire movie. When Sam is sleeping with her and he has his leg wrapped around her and his arm is wrapped around her neck and his little fingers are just clenching at her neck, and then his face is right up next to her ear and he's grinding his teeth, and that entire scene just gets you creeped out by Samuel. Like, it's so creepy, it's so good. How do you want to have kids after that? Jesus Christ.
And it's really amazing because they set him up as this super creepy, evil, is he possessed kind of child?
Mm-hmm.
But he looks the part too. And
Yes.
so when we transition into the mom being the problem, it's not that jarring because he still looks the part. And he himself is still creeped out. And so like he's maintaining a lot of what he was already. We're just now more creeped out by the mom, and so it kind of displaces him. So, I mean, it's wonderful, no doubt.
Some of the other creepy factors that really stood out to me were during that scene where I think the mom is having trouble sleeping and we speed through the night and we hear that like buzzing of maggots or something while everything's being sped up. That was pretty cool. I don't know if I've ever seen something quite like that, but it was very noticeable. And another one is when she yanked her tooth out. That kind of stuff doesn't really bother me or creep me out or anything, but it was just kind of weird and creepy that she did that. And I spend a lot of time thinking why that was necessary to add to this film. If it was just for the creepy suspense factor only, just to make people go, ugh. Because I know that's something that, body horror is something that really creeps people out. But it made me think about how people with mental health issues, people who have anxiety or depression or trauma or whatever, PTSD, and don't have good coping skills, that mental trouble always seems to find a way to express itself physically to your body. You always have some sort of symptom that you can't quite explain what's wrong with you. Why does my arm hurt? Why do I have a headache? Why do my organs hurt? Why is it hard to breathe? It always like translates into something so physical. So that's kind of where I landed with that, with her tooth hurting, and it just kept hurting, and up to the point where she couldn't stand it anymore and just yanked it out, which was awesome.
Yeah, well said. And of course, it helps balance the lashing out that comes along with someone who is unable to sort out their shit.
No, for sure. Like your mom always yells at you a little bit more when she's not feeling good. When she's hungry or, whatever's making her not well at that time, you kind of get a backlash of it. And that's funny. And that's funny you say that, because I was reading that when they filmed some of the scenes where she's verbally abusing Samuel, that the kid actor wasn't actually in the room when that happened. They had a stand-in or some kind of prop that she would yell at to help the kid not become traumatized or anything like that. Jennifer was really aware of that could happen. Which is funny because I know you've mentioned to me in The Shining that the actress was not aware of when certain scenes were going to happen, and some of her reactions were very genuine, and she was scared a lot of times, which is awesome. But maybe she wanted to prevent that here, because now that lady probably has major PTSD. I would.
That's funny. And to be honest, I would definitely have the kid in there when she's yelling.
To get his genuine reaction?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
no.
wouldn't have taken him out. I would have ruined his acting career for one shot. That's awesome.
That'd be very ironic to make a film about mental health and coping and stuff, yet traumatizing this kid. That would be hilarious. I really liked the book here. I loved everything about it. I thought it was such a badass book to incorporate here. The illustrations were awesome. The, reader interaction was awesome. The content was creepy as fuck. But one thing I noticed about it was that it had a lot of blank pages. And I still haven't quite figured out why it was necessary to add those, or what the point of those were. I'm sure it's maybe a little minor, but the book itself was so awesome that was a big standout to me.
Yeah, it seemed to me the blank pages were the story that hasn't been written, because the first time she opens it, they go through it, and it ends at some point, and I feel like we see blank pages then, but then we see it later, and the book continues a little bit longer, where she kills the dog and strangles Sam.
That was awesome.
And that was just kind of indicating that people who lack the control over themselves obviously affect everyone around you and yourself. And it just doesn't end until you do something about it, of course. But there's always just kind of that next phase of how you're going to self-sabotage. And maybe a little bit of you never really know where it's going until when it's happening. So yeah, I'm not sure if that helps justify why those blank pages are there, but they were noticeable. I totally agree.
And it really goes along with the overall tone of the film, which is suspense and tension, and having those blank pages helps build that.
In your research, did you find anything on why the Babadook is an LGBT plus, is that right? Community icon mascot?
Excuse me?
Apparently, the Babadook movie was mistagged, I guess, on Netflix as an LGBT community movie, whatever the tag is. And so people ran with it, and it was like this fun PR thing where they started putting him on like the flag, and they put him in like gay pride attire. It was hilarious.
That's awesome. No, I didn't really read about that. I didn't really read any reviews for this time around. I know it was a very well liked film, but that's pretty much it. But that's hilarious.
Yeah, it reminded me of like Barbenheimer or whatever it was called,
Yeah.
where you just had this funny thing happen that just
People run with.
and it becomes this really explosive thing.
I could see him being that though. Mr. Babadook.
I know. What's up with this fashion thing? What's up with this makeup? You know what I'm saying?
His top hat, his cloak. I mean, I can see it.
His attitude.
Definitely his attitude.
All right, man. Well, thank you for watching this movie with me and talking about it here today.
You're welcome.
Do you have a budget guess for me?
My budget guess is $2 million. I know it was her debut film, so I didn't want to go more than $5 million. And it's also horror, so definitely made me knock it down some. But I don't know. It felt like it was at least more than $1 million. So I settled with 2. I was thinking 2.5, but
Well, it says here that it was $2 million.
oh, for real?
Yeah.
Oh.
You're
That's
not
it.
cheating?
That's it. I can quit now.
Okay.
Thank you everyone for listening. That was the last episode. I leveled up.
It went on to make $10.5 million.
That's awesome.
So that's awesome. I don't think it had a US release either. It was just an Australian release. It was here at the Sundance Festival. And of course, they've made endless deals with Netflix and Amazon and whatever. But so yeah, they've made lots of money, no doubt. Love to see the triple over thing. And according to Letterboxd, with 710,000 people, lots of folks, they weighed in at a 3.4.
I'm not mad about that. I'm giving it a 3.
It seems pretty reflective. It's a very simple movie. It's very confident and, mainlined its ideas. I know there's some big defenders of it being one of the great horror movies. And I was a little surprised to see like the bar graph being not as divisive as I thought it would be.
And is it also a film that was just of its time, like The Exorcist? Because watching The Exorcist now doesn't hit what I'm sure hit back then. And even something like Chucky, it's been 10 years.
Well, yeah, people have misunderstood Chucky forever. Chucky is a comedy first and foremost. People need to get their shit straight.
I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe it may suffer from its pioneering nature and its endiness. But yeah, it's well deserved. It's very, very cool. Congratulations, Jennifer Kent. I'm probably floating around 2.5. It's a little better than that baseline movie, but it hits those baseline notes where it's just like that's a effective, successful, good movie. But yeah, man, thank you again, and thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Filmistines. Hope you enjoyed that. Remember, we post every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday over on Patreon at patreon.com/Filmistines, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora. Remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas. Come right in. Come subscribe for $1. Come request a movie. We appreciate all the support. Thank you. But until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Filmistines. Thanks for tuning in and joining us on our cinematic journey. We hope you enjoyed the discussion and gained some new insights and perspectives in the world of movies. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, especially Patreon, at patreon.com/Filmistines, and follow us on social media for more film-related content. We love hearing from our listeners, so if you have feedback, suggestions, movie recommendations, or book recommendations, please feel free to reach out to us. Until next time, keep watching and keep loving the magic of movies. This is the Filmistines, signing off.